Hi, folks, and welcome to another Saturday Morning Samoflange. I'm Matt.
I'm Benjamin.
Yay!
And we're back again.
We're back.
And it's great. And I love being here.
You know what I love doing?
What do you love doing?
Building things.
Why?
That's a lie. I despise
I
putting
really
things together.
hate building anything, actually.
My
I don't even like Legos.
My girls had that big electronic car. You don't even like Legos.
I don't like Legos.
You never built Legos?
I had Legos. I didn't say I didn't have them. I had them, but I didn't like them.
I built something simple like the Lego dog.
And then you were done.
And we had this thing called a Ninja Bot.
A what?
And we called it a Ninja Bot.
A what?
A robot.
You called it that, or
we
was
called
called
it the Ninja Bot. No, we called it the Ninja Bot.
Okay.
And I have to give credit to my brother. He came up with the idea. He took some pieces that no one... I don't know if you remember the old school Legos.
Well, I mean, yeah. That's the reason I'm so upset. I was like, wait a minute. I would have heard about a Ninja Bot.
Remember that piece that usually worked as legs? It was slanted in the front. It was almost like a cube. It had slant in the front.
Yes.
But you could snap it on the top. But on the bottom, you couldn't snap it because it was the protruding ones. Yeah. Well, usually you just snapped it on his legs or something, right? My brother turned everything upside down, snapped the bottom part on one of the little flat 3x3 pieces.
Okay.
And made it a head, gave it shoulders, built the whole robot upside down. But upside down, it looked like it had these little spears for hands, and it was and I can still, if I had the pieces, I could build one right now. In my dreams. And because those pieces we never use. Those are the most undesired pieces because unless you're gonna make a leg, and those legs would fall off immediately because they're only held by two prongs and they'd fall off. But when he figured out how to do the Ninja Bot, you couldn't find any pieces for those Legos because we snatched those up
Ninja Bot
and built Ninja Bots and dogs. And dolls.
I had Tinker
wings.
Toys. I would play with probably more often than my Legos. I did use Tinker Toys. Did you have any of those?
We had Tinker Toys, but the best time about Tinker Toys at school. I don't know if I've mentioned this on my top 5 grade school
elementary school memories.
But we formed a Voltron-like character.
You did mention that, yeah.
Tinker Toys. And we'd go hide them in our desk.
Right.
So that's my best memory of Tinker Toys. And Michael Phillips, I remember his name too. He got in trouble, got a whooping for keeping toys because he kept playing with the toys. I'm like, stop!
Right,
stop!
You're gonna get us found out
because he had ships number 3 and 4.
Yeah.
And if he could rat us all out, because I had the top ship, someone else had the
last did he rat you out when
he
got
didn't rat us out. But I thought
good.
he was so scared he was because we all hid them because you couldn't keep toys at your desk. That's a big no-no.
Do you think it was the forbiddenness of it that gave it the appeal?
We didn't want anyone taking apart those Tinker Toys and because whoever had them first got them. So we just took all the pieces for our ships and we'd connect them together so we'd have our own little toy to play with. And there were always Tinker Toys missing from the box, and that's because they were the ones that helped build our little ships.
So there you go, ladies and gentlemen of the audience. When you were in elementary school and you couldn't find all the Tinker Toys, now you know who to blame.
It was me.
I
still know how to make 2 of those ships. I can't remember how we formed all those ships, but I formed a robot because I was big into Voltron. But
everybody was big into Voltron for a minute there.
So we're going to talk about this because things that we do create.
Yes.
That these hands built here.
These hands.
When you do build something like that, it is. You are proud of it.
We were fairly nebulous with our topic, and it was difficult for me to come up with a list like this. And so I'm interested to hear what yours will be if you are specifying like more physical things you built with your hands.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and start because my number 5, I only have 5 that I'm really proud of. My 5 is one I've spoken about before, so I'll just mention it and move on.
All right.
In Cub Scouts, I told you that I built a lamp.
That's right.
And I was very proud of that lamp because I did what went from just 3 coffee
cans.
Have
somewhere?
No, my mom.
Mom threw it away. That's what it was.
She immediately said, "Oh, this is nice."
This is nice.
Never saw it again because she was not going to put that nasty lamp in her house.
Right.
But
she'd seen A Christmas Story. She knew better. It was not going to be in the window.
He showed me 3 coffee cans, a cord, and a light.
See
I was like,
what it looks like from out here.
And then, I know. And then we put it together. It's like,
that's so funny.
I have created a light.
Yeah.
And the evening and the morning were the first day. I mean, it was like really big for me. I was like, I've created a light.
It was good.
You thought man creating fire was exciting. You should have seen me creating that lamp. I was like, oh my gosh, it really is a lamp. And so that to me was my number 5.
That is pretty cool. That is pretty cool because you kind of get you have that feeling of in your youth that you not just consumed something for the first time, perhaps, or you actually contributed something back, and that's a kind of a game changer moment.
Yeah.
And it was something which is my number 4 actually, because I only had 4, but that what I talked about on the podcast last time during our live episode was the bomb program that I made from code. I didn't make it, but just the fact that I copied it and figured out what the errors were and then changed it and fixed it was my first moment like that. I was like, holy crap, I did this. And then I just went on and I created program after program after program that I could, just to make up random stuff, just to see if I could. And I'm not even a programmer anymore, but that was just the first creative, really, I did something that other people can use or enjoy or appreciate or anything like that. So that's the one I've already talked about that I can mention and move on.
That definitely beats my lamp.
Yeah. No. An 8-year-old
that helps people.
No.
You create a lamp that your mom threw away.
Yeah.
What she got.
Right. Well, I mean, I created code in MS-DOS, basic language
awesome.
that got disposed. They got thrown away as soon as I turned off the computer. Or I had the big 5 1/4 floppy disks, and those maybe have some still on there.
Well, I'll give you my fourth one because I've mentioned this one before. It was on episode 200.
Uh-huh.
I mentioned that, and I believe it was Cubs House again. We built our own little radio out of copper wire wrapping around a spool between two. It could pick up maybe 1 or 2 stations,
but it picked up a station.
But to be honest, I just thought that was amazing because again, and I know you can go online and figure out how to make your own radio still today to pick up rays, but that to me, I was blown away. I can't remember what kind of box we put it in either, but it was all cardboard and stuff, but you made it together, you're like, wow. Now that thing either got smashed or broke or we threw it away. I don't know.
How long do you think it lived before that?
It didn't live that long. I mean, I picked up some signals and I was happy, and then one day threw it in with my toys and it automatically broke. I don't know. But the thing
Where
was,
my Tinker toys at?
that I built something that could pick up signals. I mean, we all saw the Explorers as kids.
Yeah.
You all wanted to be Ethan Hawke. Because at that point, when I could build a radio, I could build a spaceship,
You can do whatever MacGyver could do at that point.
You could. So I was a really big believer in building that. So that was my number 4. I kind of mentioned that before, so I wanted to throw that one out. The other 3 are a little bit more bigger, but bigger or more personal. So what is your number 4 now?
It is a program of a different sort. When you say a program, I'm probably not using the correct business term. Like, I work for a very large company, and you and I were just talking about this off the air, but I came into a company that had very little in the way of email, cybersecurity, and set up a defense perimeter sort of thing. And that was one of my first jobs, first projects, I guess, that I really took on and did all of myself. And so the whole program, the cybersecurity program that we have currently at work is, stemmed from my original work that I did. And so when we first came in, the company that I got hired by had just been purchased by the big company, and so it hadn't been taken over fully yet, and there was still sort of not a mom and pop feel, but a smaller company feel, right?
Yeah.
And there was just very little in the way of established cybersecurity protocols. And to take basically nothing or just guesswork and turn it into an established, formulated program with when you go to your company's website or whatever and you type in how to whatever on the intranet on your internal site, like things I created come up with that. And I am very proud of that because I know that based on the work that I did, that my company is safer and more secure. I'm not saying it's impenetrable because no company is. And but the difference between then and now is significant in the multiple times of degrees better. And I'm extremely proud of that. And I created almost all of it myself. And that's it. That's my number 4. I can't be too specific because of the nature of the job. But
this is interesting because I'm saying that I created things that they're the equivalent of a paper airplane.
Right.
While you're saying I came up with a new medical program that actually detects something, and that's my number 4. So this is feeling good. I'm feeling good about this.
So
Folks,
we've
if you
got
haven't guessed whose IQ is higher in
So
this podcast.
we've got whatever. We've got a lamp and a box radio that's been thrown away or broken.
Okay. So my number 3 is not any better. In fact, I totally forgot, and I'm so glad this is a topic we talked about. We were just throwing out some topics, and this is one that came up, and I said, that's interesting. And I forgot about this, and still I started thinking about what did I make that I was very proud of. And I remembered for my dad's birthday, or for Father's Day, I can't remember which one it was, I made him his very own bookshelf.
Oh.
Now, it was only 2 shelves, really just one, but you could put books at the bottom of it.
Okay, I follow you.
I took spare wood that we had in our backyard, just these little planks.
How old do you think you were?
I had to be between 10 to 12, maybe.
Okay. Big enough to play with a hammer.
Yeah, big enough to use a hammer and nails.
Sure.
But my mom trusted me to do it because she knew I was doing this.
That's impressive.
And so I remember I put blocks together and I said, wait a minute, I built one shelf, and then underneath it, the legs could count as another shelf. And it was just 2 shelves. It was about this tall, maybe. Yeah. Well, no one can see me. About, what's that, 2 feet or whatever? I don't know. Whatever it was.
Half a meter.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, well, I'll build this. And I remember I put hammers in the top, hammers in the side to, keep the shelf together.
Nails?
It was steel, nails in there. That's obviously I'm not doing a good job. But anyway, I was like, okay, and it wasn't the sturdiest shelf. It couldn't hang on its own. I had to lean up against the wall to make sure if you put books on it.
Of course.
And
sounds like anything you get from Walmart today.
I painted it a little bit, and I gave it to Dad as a present.
Wait a minute. I painted it a little bit?
I don't think I painted the inside of the shelf, now that I think about it. I think I just painted the top and the sides.
The cool part, the ones you can see.
I think Mom gave me some paint, like red or black or something, and I painted the top and the sides. I don't think I painted because I wasn't that smart. And so, but I remember you could put like 2 rows of books. Well, it wasn't that many books. I mean, we're talking about not that wide. So Dad could put a few books in there. And I remember, it was nice.
So you gave it to him.
I'm sure that his son builds in this crappy little piece of plywood. He's like, okay. Dad never put books on it. I did.
You did.
I was very proud of it, and I just had little books on it. It eventually disappeared one day, which is fine. Doesn't hurt my feelings. But I just remember making that and just thinking that I have created a shelf. And as a little kid, I felt like, now bring on the spaceship. No, I'm kidding. I wasn't saying that, but I was like, look at I was very proud of my little bookshelf that I built my dad.
I can tell. It sounds great.
And I haven't asked my mom if she remembers that bookshelf, but when we mentioned this topic, I started thinking about the lamp. Obviously the first 2 came to me was the lamp and the radio that I just mentioned, and I was like, wait a minute. I did a bookshelf for my dad once. Yeah. I remember. I love that bookshelf.
Do you remember what his reaction was to it?
Oh, probably like, oh, this is good. This is great.
A dad reaction.
Let's go to the next one.
Okay.
So you use some of the plywood. Now I can't use this for firewood. Thanks, son.
I'm kidding. That wasn't it.
No, I'm sure.
My parents are getting older, and that's one thing that I would encourage you to do, and anyone to do listening to this, is you'd be surprised how many things your parents do remember from moments like that, things that really stick out to you. And I have tried to make it a point. I typically go to my parents for Sunday dinner lately, and I have made a habit of bringing up stuff like that, and memories that I have that are very strong memories of my youth, and like, Mom, do you remember when we did this? And it's really surprising to me how often things that are very clear in my memory have no recollection whatsoever, or are just as vivid to them. And to hear their point of view as an older adult is really great. And it's one of the best parts of my family time that I have now. So I think you should ask them about it and tell me what happens afterward. See if they do remember the shelf.
I will.
See if your mom knows the moment that she held that lamp in her hands and what thoughts went through her head and turned around and threw it away. Like, was it? Did I leave the room first, or did you just really throw it away while I was still there?
I will name this as it looks: sin, ugly as sin. I'm going to throw it away. You painted Maxwell cans red. Right. Good to do. Whoop-de effing do.
Whoop-de-do. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
So-
I want to know. Like, you should ask
Why
them.
can't you create computer programs like
Whatever.
your friend?
Whatever.
That's exactly what
Whatever.
she said.
That's horse crap. Just.
All right, what's number 3?
I want to know what they thought about the radio, the cans.
I don't know if they remember the radio.
else. Okay.
I'll be honest, it was probably my fault. I threw that away. But anyway,
I bet they would.
What's your number 3?
It's related to the phishing program and the email campaign program that I just talked about. That's essentially what it was, is like a phishing campaign. That's the word I was looking for earlier.
And when you say phishing campaign, I'm thinking about,
Right.
reeling in that bass. So why don't
Cybersecurity,
you go
right?
ahead and
PHISHING,
Yes.
which most people are familiar with
everyone
now.
knows. It's the same thing as catfishing, folks. I'm kidding.
Which we do on the reg. But it was to get to that point where I could do something like that is I was living in New Orleans at the time, teaching myself how to do all of this fun stuff. And we talked about this very briefly or very recently as well, is that I was living in a city where there's literally something to do every day, especially during festival season. Mardi Gras is just a couple of months of the year. Like in New Orleans, you have a party for anything. Like it's a random Wednesday, or Cinco de Mayo is the biggest thing in the world right now, and then next week is the biggest thing in the world, and then the next week, and I am so extremely proud of what I created. I guess is my study guides that I still have is what the physical thing that I thought about, because when I'm studying things like that, I often never go back and read my notes to do it. It's just the writing it down makes me remember it and puts a tactile sort of memory stamp for me. So I make a ton of handwritten notes when I'm studying for things, but I rarely reference them when I'm trying to remember those topics. But I kept them all because of how incredibly proud, because I filled several notebooks of notes with stuff, and I have big scrawling handwriting, like very flourishy, and because when I was 22 years old, my sister, I think, got me a calligraphy set for my birthday, and I wanted to learn how to do it, and it's very difficult, and it all really depends a lot on the pen, but it changed my handwriting style forever after that, and so I naturally flourish all of my handwriting with a lot of things, and I just kind of add it in and have my own little style that I use.
Cool.
But I make all my notes with that. So I say all of that to say that I created those notebooks that got me the job that I have today, and that I studied for and passed the tests for some very difficult cybersecurity and just general certification exams that I still have up on my wall. And those are something that I'm most proud of in my entire life, is because they were a feeling of accomplishment and something that I really buckled down and did, even while living in a city like New Orleans. And I will never, for as long as I live, forget the Mardi Gras season that I studied through. And I only lived 4 blocks away from the main parade route on St. Charles Avenue, and because there's nearly 100 parades that happen every Mardi Gras season. It's not just one big parade. For the people who don't live in Louisiana, and even people who live in Monroe or the area up here, like even in other parts of Louisiana, growing up, I didn't realize that New Orleans doesn't just have Mardi Gras and that's it. It's over and done. Like here we have one parade and it's over and done. It's whatever. It's no big deal. Or it is kind of a fun thing, but in New Orleans, it's an entire season, happens after 12th night, and it's a big event, and it goes on and on and on. It gets progressively bigger and louder and more fun and more entertaining, and then all the tourists show up on the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
And that's when, at that point, all of the locals go home, and they're like, okay, the tourists are here.
Yeah.
We've been drunk for 2 months. They can have these next 2 days. That's fine. And then they go home to recuperate, because people in New Orleans get the day off typically on Monday and Tuesday. And because they know no one's going to work, because there's way too many tourists in town. No, nothing's going to happen.
Not worth it, yeah.
So the locals all go home to have their hangovers and get done, and then on Ash Wednesday you wake up and you go get forgiven for everything at the church.
Of course,
get your ashes on your head and such.
It's like the Purge, except you're just pissing in public and showing your boobs. This is the time no one gets arrested for the next 24 hours.
Everything
is legal.
I've never thought of it that way.
Drink in public,
you
piss
know
in
what?
public, show your boobies.
It's
for beads, for plastic beads. No one gets arrested.
It's pretty accurate. That's pretty good. People will get arrested, yeah, that's for sure.
God bless the purge.
Stop it. Okay.
New Orleans purge.
Yeah. Well, that said, that's just New Orleans and Mardi Gras season is just a microcosm of what the rest of the city is like the entire year.
I've told people this a million times. Every time I say Louisiana, people go, I've always wanted to go see Mardi Gras at New Orleans. I said, really? Because that's the worst time to go.
Yeah.
That's when they're at the least. If you want to go see New Orleans at its height, go outside of the Mardi Gras season
totally
really
agree.
Enjoy. There is so much more to New Orleans, so much culture, so much to do than just. In fact, at Mardi Gras, I'd never suggest anyone go to Mardi Gras. You want to be crowded. You want to have people throw up on you, pee on you. You want to have jerks that don't live in New Orleans be jerks to you. You'll get a very bad. I mean, you may have fun because it's Mardi Gras. Yeah, everyone's partying, but you're not. I wouldn't say you're experiencing the culture.
You aren't. No. Mardi Gras.
Mardi Gras is part of the culture. I'm just saying you're not experiencing the true culture of everything New Orleans has to offer.
But Mardi Gras is it's the French term. It's just one day. That's just Fat Tuesday. That's it. And it's an entire season. So going in near the end of Mardi Gras season is probably the better time to go if you're going to experience it. Don't go on the Tuesday of or the Monday of or that Friday, Saturday, Sunday leading up to is really the last time that the locals typically will go out and do things.
Don't they still do 12th night?
Yeah,
there too.
That's when it kicks off,
and that's
the kickoff.
That's the kickoff.
12 nights after Christmas is when.
That's when it kicks off. So you can go early. Would you suggest early?
No, I mean
probably later.
The beginning, like there are some big parades right at the start to kick it off, like big celebratory things, and then they get smaller. Like there's a big kickoff, and then there's smaller builder, and it grows up until the day.
Yeah,
the bigger super crews all happen in the final. Week or two, and so probably the week before or 2 weeks before actual Mardi Gras, which is when it ends.
It's like college bowl games,
right? Exactly, it really is.
You have all the championships, which are big times, and then you start with the small
drop
bowls
it down, and
then
go build back up. That's exactly how Mardi Gras is. So, like Mardi Gras is really the end of the whole festival.
So you're saying they should go to
season.
The Senior Bowl.
All right, yeah, that's crazy fun, like Endymion parades and all that kind of stuff. That's really fun. However, outside of it, because that's still a really cold time of year, like January, February is still cold. It gets cold down there with the moisture in the air. It's very biting. That said, festival season, which is in April typically, and Jazz Fest, and there are more things that happen outside, and there are more free concerts than you can go shake a stick at and go pee drunkenly at that you could ever experience in your entire time.
You could experience less crowded areas or less busy times. That still are going to have tons of people there, but still, you would enjoy. There's much more.
The number one tip I would give anyone who is even thinking about going to New Orleans is do not, you should go to the French Quarter. You should see what Bourbon Street looks like in person. You should smell it in person and see just how interesting that is. You should go to Canal Street and to see different Café du Monde, the big stuff.
You got to do Café du Monde,
but
I agree.
Do that on your first day and then be done with it. And then I always would take people outside of the quarter. I never would take anyone to the quarter after we saw those big things really first. And usually that was half a day that I could do all of the big things that people wanted to see. And then the rest of the time I would take them to places outside of the quarter, because the French Quarter is a tiny little part of the city. And the rest of it is, there's just so much wonderful, incredible, unique food that you will never get anywhere else. It's magnificent. Awesome. So the point of this entire soliloquy is that there are attractions abroad, attractions galore, and things that are trying to pull your attention away from what you should be doing, regardless of what that is in your life.
Yeah.
What's the smirk about on your face right now?
No, I just...
You're waiting to...
How dare you drop soliloquy on my podcast here.
If
you would have been a founding member of this podcast, it would have been Saturday Morning Soliloquy.
Oh, hey. Saturday Morning Soliloquy.
Oy.
That would have died really quickly, I think. But I'm proud of those certs that are on my wall, is my point, because I will never forget the amount of temptation that I resisted to get them.
Good.
And I just needed to do it, and I did.
Awesome. My number 2 is actually something that's real that I really do appreciate, and it's a big deal. I don't know how many people know this. I went to Baltimore, Maryland for a couple months, and I worked for a construction company.
I didn't even know that.
No one really knows this because it happened back when I graduated high school and was not really ready to go to college yet, so I skipped that first year.
So you went to a construction company and like, look, I built a shelf for my dad last year.
Yeah, can I get in? Can I get a job?
Look.
My buddy at the time was, his brother lived in Baltimore, and he was from Baltimore. He said, well, I'm going to go up to work for my brother for a couple months. If you want to come with me? I was like, I don't care. And this was in February, March, during the winter time. Ooh. So I was freezing. They made fun of me. I wore double. I wore sweats. I wore a sweatpants and sweatshirt underneath my clothes, underneath my winter clothes. I was so cold. At night, it's funny because his mom felt sorry for me because she's like, I don't know why he's so cold, but I was like shivering, freezing every night because I mean. To them, you keep it. It's going to be cold in the house either way.
It had been cold.
It's freezing outside. It's just cold. It's 50 here.
It had been cold to them for the past 5 months.
They don't stay cold, so it can be 50 in the room or 40, and they're fine because it's 0 degrees outside. So what are you whining about, you big baby? But I was like, oh my gosh, I had to be fully dressed when I went to bed too. I was like, I am freezing. I'd get blankets and everything, and
you were only there 2 months.
I was only
like
2 months.
Barely enough time to get acclimated anyway.
Just dying. But to be honest. It didn't snow, which was the first time in 20 years, I think. They had gone without it. It snowed the day I got there, and the day I left, it snowed again. He said, that has never happened in Baltimore. Like, I brought early summer.
Yeah, nice.
The snow stuck around,
sure,
for a while.
Of course it was still there.
But it melted a little bit, but he said, we're having a heat wave here, and it's because of you, Wow. They're like, you're taking away my snow. He was joking with me. But so
aside from a snowman, what else did you build?
Well, we snowman. We built a few things. We demolished an entire floor, which was super fun. I got hit on the ankle with a sledgehammer. I didn't break they took me to the hospital. I did not break my ankle. Didn't even fracture it.
Wow.
It just bruised really big.
Really effing hurt.
But it wasn't anyone's fault. He was slamming through the stud, didn't see me. The sledgehammer went right through the stud and then onto my ankle. Oof. And I hobbled and screamed the whole way there, but I thought it was broken. I was like, this thing's broken. He said, nope, you ain't broke. And I was like, really? So that I survived that, but I had a great time with those guys too.
Sorry, that just reminds me so much of that outtake from the Lord of the Rings where
he kicks the helmet.
No, that too. That's a good one too. When he kicks the helmet and he broke his foot or broke his toe or something. Viggo Mortensen
broke his toe. Yeah.
Well, they were talking about when they were running towards the river from the ring wraiths at the beginning, and he's like, "How long to the nearest crossing?" Like Brandywine Bridge, 20 miles, or whatever. And they were running, or Sam, or I forget who it was. They were running to jump into the boat to get away from him. And as they were doing a take, one of them got a splinter in his foot, and he said it felt like a knife of wood had gone into my toe, and it was awful. And he was screaming about it and angry or upset. And they yelled cut, and they got him off to the side, and they pulled out this little splinter that was like this big, just a tiny little fleck of but it feels gigantic. The smallest rock in the world feels huge in your shoe.
That's true.
So anyway, pebble. So that's kind of what I think about when you're like, it's broken. Yeah. Oh God.
Well, I remember the one I'm proud about. We went on a floor of a big building. It was an empty floor. And I went, it was just the two of us. I went, what are we going to do here? He went, we're building an office space here. I went, this is an empty floor. He went, yeah. I said, how long is it going to take? He said, a week. Wow. I said, a week. We're going to build an office. He went, yeah, watch. And day one was, in my opinion, we snapped the blue string, the blue chalk string.
Yeah.
We measured out, snapped where all the offices were going to be, the
hallway,
the break room. I was thinking you were just
going to go say that you found all the Lego pieces that you needed.
Exactly. That's what we started building
legs,
from there.
You got the upside down legs.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But we looked at the floor plan, and he measured things out. We snapped everything, and then we started planting the studs.
In day one, okay.
Day one.
Right.
And day two, we were finishing the studs. We had to keep going with the studs, and then we had a framework. I was like, all right. Day three.
And so day three or day two, I still don't see how we're going to do this in a week.
I still don't see.
Okay.
Day three, we put up the drywall. Cut drywall and put it up, which is very hard to cut drywall.
I've never done that.
It is extremely hard. He made me ruin several drywalls to make me learn. He said, it's the only way you're going to learn. You got to keep doing it. I said, dude, I am wasting drywall. Please. He went, nope, we got plenty. He said, you got to learn how to do it. Huh. And so he made me do it, and We hung up drywall on one side because the other side, the electricians had to come in. And so while the electricians came in on day 4, we were hanging drywall behind them, cutting out spots for the electrical outlets, installing those, which is I didn't know it was that simple to install those that they put the wires in. And so, and then put the little paneling over it, the switches and stuff like that.
It's similar to the lamp. Like you'd built a lamp at this point. You're like, you should have known how simple that was.
I was building doors at this point. I remember my first door I built, I went in and then went out and then went back in and went back out. And so we were moving
who's
behind.
This guy is like, that's Mr. Bean. Don't pay any amount of money.
That's true. Yeah. But we're moving behind the electricians and just building the walls behind them.
Nice.
And then on day 5, we finished out all the rest of the walls. And I looked around, and I mean, all that was left was to put down the thin office carpet.
It just hit you all of a sudden.
But I just kind of looked around on Friday. I said, I can't believe it, because it was the floor is still the concrete or whatever.
Yeah.
But they were going to build in the flooring, put in the flooring later. But the walls, the outlets, the lights, everything was built. And I was like, I cannot believe we built this in a week, just the two of us. And he's like, yeah, it's easy. He said, but they'll come in and they'll finish it up. They got to finish up a few other things here before it's out. And the thing is, I've always wanted to go back and go to that floor and see that place and go, you like this office? Yeah, I built it. So, it's kind of proud. I built a whole office floor.
Absolutely.
Somewhere in Baltimore, Maryland.
No, that's super cool.
Yeah.
There's a great movie that I really like called Return to Me. It's an underrated romantic comedy. It's one of my all-time favorite movies. And it's got David Duchovny and Minnie Driver in it, and he's an architect. And that's one of his dates that he does with. He takes her to the first building that he ever builds, kind of thing. It's one of his favorite places to go. What was the other movie with Joseph Gordon-Levitt, where he's an architect as well, or it's a Taylor Yakowenko hates this movie because it's a rip off of another movie that's a classic, but. Shucks, I can't think of it. But it's the same sort of thing. Like he's an architect and he wants to build something, and he goes to his favorite spot on a bench somewhere where he can see the city skyscapes.
Yeah.
It's pretty good. It's a good movie. Don't ever mention it to Taylor. She'll lose her mind. But some people are just, it's so funny to me how some people get so passionately angry about. Oh, yeah, you're right. Summer.
Summer. Endless summer?
No.
No, summer. It's something. No, 90 days of summer or something.
Yes.
That's something like that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. I like that one because then he meets the girl named what? August?
Autumn. Yeah.
That's great.
Right.
I thought he looks at himself in the mirror and sees Han Solo.
Right.
I love that movie.
And he breaks the fourth wall at the very end, I think, when she says, "My name is Autumn," and he looks right at the camera, kind of thing.
Well, then the calendar restarts. Day 1 of autumn.
Right.
It's great. That's great.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
Is that the movie that shows how he imagined things going down, how things really happen?
Yes, it was the split
That's a great
screen.
movie. Why doesn't Taylor like that movie?
Because it is essentially a remake or a different version of an earlier movie that I can never remember the title of either. And 500 Days of Summer is what it's called. 500
Days of Summer.
And the one that it's kind of based on is ripping very deliberately things that she loves about the first one. So
I never saw the first one, but
I mean, some people really hate the Disney versions of Star Wars, and because it rips a lot of stuff and tears down other things that are really great about Star Wars, and so you can't fault them for it because some things get trashed.
No, that's true. That's true.
So that's how she feels about 500 Days of Summer.
So who does number 2 work for?
Who does number 2 work for? What are we?
Well, that's an Austin Powers reference, but. What's your number 2?
Oh, I haven't seen Austin Powers enough, I don't think.
Oh, yeah, I haven't either, but I just remember that one. He's trying to squeeze out a turd. Or you think he is. But
you remember the poop jokes?
Yeah, I remember the poop jokes.
I think I mentioned it at the beginning of the podcast, is that I didn't really have a top 5. I only had 4, and my number 1 is just pretty long. And no, I want you to do your number 2. I'm going to rephrase that sentence as it came out of my mouth. I didn't want to say it that way. I want you to go ahead and do your next one.
I will do
so that I can read through all my notes for my number 1.
Go ahead.
Oh, you're on your number 1?
I can do number 1 now.
Oh, please go for it.
Yeah. When I was a kid, I built an Ewok village because my mom said she wouldn't buy us the playset. And I would love to have seen a pic. I wish we would have taken a picture of it because I was never prouder of that Ewok village than anything than I was of that Ewok village. It sprawled out through a good portion of the backyard. We would buy extra. My mom stopped buying us Ewoks because we kept buying the same ones over because we needed extra Ewoks for the village.
Oh,
and
of course.
We had
Did
some.
she not see the appeal in that? And you already have this one. Like, no, Mom, you don't. It doesn't matter. I need 3 of these.
Yeah, we had a broken off tree branch that was kind of thick that we kind of covered. We dug it into the ground. We stuck it into the ground and then covered it with dirt so it could kind of stand up on its own. That was the center of the village because
that was
big
the tree. Oh,
big
gotcha.
tree of life. And then we had all these little huts, straw huts with brick, whatever. I'm sure it was just a hodgepodge, hot mess.
Bunch of trash. There was a stick in the middle.
We created something that was. If my mom even would have asked us, "Do you still want the Ewok village?" No. I have it.
I got
these
a
hands
better
have
version
it.
right here. Yeah,
I mean, that's
what we were talking about in episode 200 with stuff that playing outside and using our imagination and things like that. That was priceless.
And I bet it was just a 1,000% trash, but at the same time,
like literally trash.
I bet it was. But I was so proud. Never was prouder of anything.
I totally get that. Absolutely get that.
That's
cool.
What's number 1 for you?
My number 1 was a tie for all of the theater shows that I've performed. And here's one.
Okay.
I love acting and creating laughter on stage. I mentioned to you in our podcast about top 5 careers or businesses we'd like to run, that my number 1 was to be like an agency for stand-up comics. And because comics versus a comedian, first of all, is a big distinction. A comedian is anybody who can be funny. Like you can have Tom Hanks get there and he is a really good comedian. He can be really funny in all his movies, and I'm sure he's a funny guy in person. But to be a comic, a stand-up comic, takes a certain skill and an ability to work a crowd.
That's true. And timing.
Perfect timing has to go into it. It has to, everything is very carefully controlled, and a lot of people who are very funny get humbled very quickly. Charlie Sheen apparently had a story where he, after he went nuts and got fired from 2.5 Men, he tried to be a stand-up comic, and it failed miserably apparently. Yeah. And a lot of people have talked about that. There's a lot of examples you can find of that. So the stand-up comic thing is something that I would like to be a part of because of the theater shows I'm talking about are the thing I'm probably the most proud of because of the moments that stand out in my head of looking down into the audience and seeing people laughing so hard that they can't catch their breath. And I think I talked about this once on here about the guy who turned so beet red laughing hard that I was seriously afraid he was going to have a heart attack and that I would have to stop the show and say, well, this guy needs an ambulance because he was that blood red in his face. But to me, like the dude didn't die, and I told him after the show how happy I was that he was okay, because I remembered I told him that I saw him down there laughing and that I was worried for him, and he just thought that was the funniest thing ever too, and so we had a great time, and I love doing comedies and that kind of thing. And so what I had written in here as well, I kind of did this little diatribe about my job. And so one of the things I've been thinking about is going into I do cybersecurity now, but I've been thinking about doing cybersecurity for the entertainment industry. And a lot of times when people say they want to get into that industry, they're talking about Hollywood, or they want to be famous, or they want to be a celebrity or something like that. I'm not talking about that necessarily, because the organization I work for now essentially supports other things that I'm proud of as well. I don't want to talk about my job and what I do now because of the nature of my gig. I like to keep it a little bit private. But I'm very proud of what I do, and I can know that after a very difficult day that I made it safer for X to exist and to operate the way it wants to operate. And even if the company that I work for gets hacked, like, it's so difficult for me to prove a negative. Like, we didn't get hacked because of me. That's impossible to prove, right?
Right.
But I know that that's the truth, and that our organization is more secure because of what I've done in the past and what I do every day. And so when I have a very difficult day, I'm grateful for the overall mission of what my company does. Of course. And I've thought about that, and in conjunction with the number one job that I would want to do, like the stand-up comedian agency and such. But then I've thought, what would be the broadest way to share and to help to work for something that would bring more joy into the world?
Right.
And I thought about movies, naturally, because they have a long shelf life.
True.
They do become antiquated and go out, but I mean, movies are a fairly new medium.
Yeah.
For a while it was novels that Beowulf was the first one. It's been kicking around. I'm sure that they're very happy about Beowulf and the residual sales there.
True.
But now in the current generation, books are trailing off, and literature, physical literature, media is not as popular, and it is fading out a bit. And people aren't reading nearly as much as they were when we were younger.
Yeah.
And movies, I think about old comedies, like a random story that was suggested on my Google News was such and such about Gilligan's Island. And I'm like, why in the world does Google think that? I have never searched for anything Gilligan's Island related in my life. Hello. I have no idea why it suggested this story for me. And that's a TV show I haven't even thought about since I was a kid. But it was the stuff, man. Like, that was the show to beat for a while. It was ridiculous, and it's funny, and it brought a lot of joy to a lot of people, and it was just a goofy thing. Yeah. You think about the Three Stooges and how a lot of people don't know who those guys are, and they were the kings of the hill for a while as far as comedy goes, and all these great actors that you can list. So I'm trying to decide what I want to do in my career that will support an industry like that. I like acting. I like being up on stage. I like being the one to make people laugh. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to do that as a career. I don't think I would ever really want to do that. I feel like I would become disenchanted with the process.
Okay.
If I did it every day and only did that every day.
Gotcha.
Because that would be that'd be tough to get up.
It would be.
And I respect actors who can do that every day.
It's true.
That said, I'm looking at possibly doing something like that. So, but this, as far as number one thing I've created, it's all the shows I've done, and it's the laughter I've created through the performances I didn't create it, but myself, all by myself.
That came from.
That's exact. Yeah. Thank you for finishing that for me. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. It's the laughs that have come from it, and I mean everything from when I was a kid performing my own little stage shows in the living room to talent shows at church or something like that, and up to the plays that we've done together, and even the dramas I've done. Like, probably the show I'm the most proud of is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, because it was such a difficult, complicated script, and how quickly we put it together in such a short amount of time, and I feel like I crushed it.
Yeah.
And that personally, like, so few people saw it, and a lot of people didn't understand it, but it was a pinnacle of my acting achievement for me, and it was fantastic. I loved it. But that's my number one.
That's a good one.
So thinking about making that change possibly soon in my career as well.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
I hope no one from my company hears this.
Hey, folks, what are the top 5 things you're happy that you created?
That would be a great thing to really read about in the comments.
Yeah.
I wonder what people's just give me the number one.
And we do read the comments.
Yeah.
We love the comments.
I love it. I would love to hear what someone else's number one thing is they're proud of.
Yeah. So let us know, and hey, let's do this again next week.
All right. We should talk about it next week on Saturday.
Morning
Samoflange.